Hi ClimateX, my name is Mara Freilich. I'm a Ph.D. student in physical oceanography in the MIT-WHOI Joint Program. I'm currently a Fulbright Scholar in Santiago, Chile, studying Marine Ecology at la Universidad Católica de Chile. I will be talking about local climate action, so I'll be focusing on legislative action at the state and city level. I'm excited to share and talk about this topic with all of you. We'll be talking about local level climate action. And by that I mean really state and city level action. And we'll be focusing on the Resilient Rhode Island Act, which passed in 2014. And so this is, maybe you can call it a success story, and that's something we'll be talking about, but it's a piece of comprehensive climate legislation. So it includes both mitigation of climate change and adaptation to climate change. And we managed to pass it in 6 months in 2014 after 6 years of failure to attempt a similar bill that focused just on mitigation of climate change. And so some of the things we'll be talking about are action on mitigation of climate change versus action on adaptation to climate change. And we'll also be talking about what the impacts are of climate change at the local level and what sorts of action you can take and how that's distinct from, say, the international level, and how this type of climate action is also distinct from kind of scientific projects like citizen science, but how all of these things can work together. I'm going to post some news articles about Resilient Rhode Island Act in particular. And this is interesting because working with the media was a really important part of what we were doing. So I think it'll be interesting for all of you to read about the bill first, and then kind of I'll present it and show you what we were trying to do, and we can see if the media was presenting it as we wanted and how this media representation might be different from what's actually going on the ground. And I think that's something that we know. We think about in newspapers all the time. So some of the things we'll be thinking through together are how can we effectively make change at the really local level, so in your own community. Rhode Island was a small state, so it kind of blurs the city and state boundaries, but we did a lot of research on larger states as well, because states like California have been leading, as well as some European cities, some South American cities in different ways on climate action. And so the first kind of topic we'll be thinking through is why. And so why do we take action at the local level? And part of what we'll be talking about is what actually are the impacts at the local level. When I was working in Providence, I was also volunteering as part of an English education organization, and the building that organization was in had been flooded a few years earlier. And that prompted the environmental organization to focus on that neighborhood, which was a low-income neighborhood, and thinking about how urban Providence was going to adapt to climate change. The second is who. So we were a student coalition that paired initially with university researchers, but in order to actually pass the bill and have widespread support in the state, we needed to build a wider coalition. So how do we do that? Who got involved and who didn't get involved in a coalition, and then who, and that's, I think, really where you all come in. So who are you, and who do you have connections to in the community? And one thing that I think is really important is that I think everybody should feel empowered to get involved in climate action, but also I think it's really important to acknowledge that people are coming from different standpoints and have access to different resources, different types of knowledge, different community, different kind of financial resources or political resources. And so how can we leverage those and also draw people in who have resources that are different than our own? And then the final is evaluating success. So this isn't going to be a tutorial on how to successfully pass a bill. I hope that we can evaluate whether this legislative action was actually successful, and think about what success means in a local campaign. Can you be successful even if you don't pass a bill? If you raised awareness, can you fail and you pass a bill if the bill doesn't effectively address the problem? And so we'll be talking about kind of all of those aspects of climate action on the local level. I've tried to kind of craft a very interdisciplinary education for myself. And I think one of the things that I've experienced is that it can be very difficult to pass knowledge from one discipline to another. And I hope that's something that we can overcome with a project like ClimateX. So even though there's a large amount of social science research on how to take effective action on climate change, how to communicate effectively about climate change, what should be done. I find that climate scientists often are not aware of what can be done. And so a lot of my education on that came from taking history classes, taking social science classes, taking critical race theory classes, to really understand what the impacts of environmental destruction are. And so that was a very academic background coming into this project, but a lot of these skills aren't things that you learn in academia. So things like teamwork and leadership and working across diverse sets of groups that I learned equally inside the classroom and outside the classroom that I think definitely serve in an academic context as I work to build safe and supportive communities in science that are also productive in scientific research. But kind of being able to leverage skills from a wide range of experiences and be both a scholar and a citizen is something that's really important to me and that I think that the ClimateX community shares. No, I moved to Rhode Island as an undergraduate. So I was an undergraduate at Brown University. And then I think even as an undergraduate, I only lived there for a little bit more than 4 years, but getting things done in community is really important to me. And so I built a community within kind of different volunteer work off campus, different advocacy work off campus. We were part of the Rhode Island Student Climate Coalition, which at the time was mostly Brown students, but we had continual outreach efforts to students at other universities in the state, and got involved with some library community groups, and tried to just keep building and building our community, which is something that really helped us be successful in campaigns. But we also had campus community. I have scientific communities that are important. We had campus community that was supportive of climate action as well. Yeah, and just kind of being involved where I lived at the time was how this came about. But it was part of the reason I decided to go to school in Boston, to be nearby in Rhode Island, and I already had a climate activist community in Boston as well, in addition to the academic community that I already had ties to. Yeah, I guess part of the reason that working Rhode Island Student Climate Coalition was so important to me and something that I spent so much effort on was that I really saw the opportunity to empower my fellow students. And now that I'm no longer an undergraduate student, I'm excited about this ClimateX project, being able to build a community and build a conscious community that's thinking about ways to take climate action and that are really effective and also sustained throughout people's careers, even if they don't go on to become professional activists, even if they don't consider themselves activists at all, actually. And so I'm excited to be part of this project that can hopefully be empowering and raise consciousness.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for talking with us today.
Yeah, thank you.